I've always been a very active person. As a kid, I played so many different sports. I played football, I played basketball, I played baseball. I even played on a boys' team. I remember my mom getting me onto a boys' team. I think I was the first girl ever to play on a boys' team in my area where I grew up. I loved sports and I loved being active. It was so great for my brain and for as a child who had a lot of energy, it was important that I stayed active, right? That I was working my muscles and burning off steam. And as I got into my teens, I would go to the gym all the time and I would do cardio and I would always exercise and make sure that I was moving. And one thing that I never did was lift weights. I was always afraid that I would become too bulky and that I wouldn't look feminine. And these were thoughts that went through my mind, and I know probably many of your minds as well, especially our Gen X generation, and fed information that I'm thankful that is no longer the narrative that exists out there for our younger generation. And one thing looking back, I wish now that I'm in menopause and having gone through perimenopause and menopause, is I wish that I would have worked out with weights more often and that I wasn't afraid of becoming bulky or looking like the Hulk. And today's conversation is going to talk about the importance of weightlifting, of making sure that we are doing weight bearing exercises because it is crucial for our brain health, our bone health, our muscle health. It's for longevity, for quality of life that you're going to see what Melissa, our guest, talks about today. So I'm excited because we haven't really done an interview in a long time about exercise and movement and weight lifting. So I'm excited to introduce you to our guest. But before I do that, I just want to do a quick intro to who I am. If you're new to my podcast, my name is Andrea Donsky. I'm a nutritionist for almost 20 years. I'm a menopause educator and soon to be published menopause researcher, which I'm very excited about. And I'm also the co-founder of Morphus, which is a company that helps to empower you to take control of your health and symptoms as you enter into perimenopause and then menopause. Today, I'm speaking with Melissa Hyde. With over 35 years of experience as a kinesiologist, personal trainer, yoga, meditation, energy medicine, and breathwork instructor, Reiki practitioner, mindset coach, and fasting lifestyle coach, Melissa Hyde combines her expertise to help midlife women transform their bodies and their lives. As the co-creator of the Loving Her project, she's discovered a holistic approach that ensures women can finally lose weight, keep it off, and feel energized every day. Melissa is also one of my partners for the Power of Menopause Summit that is coming up on October 25th from 9 to 5. I put a link to it below. It is a free virtual summit. We moved from last year, we were live in person. We moved to online because a lot of you had asked us if you can access it. And we thought this year we are just going to go virtual to make it easier for everyone to be able to access this incredible information. We have a great lineup of speakers and you can register below. Again, it's free and I put a link below so you can join us on October 25th live. If you can't join us live, don't worry about it. You will be able to access the recordings. Now, here's Melissa. Welcome to Menopause Reimagined, Melissa.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I am happy you're here too, because so for everyone who is listening, Melissa, myself, Nicole, and Randy are all partners on our Power of Menopause Summit that we're going to talk about at the end of this podcast because we are so excited. It's coming up at the end of October, October 25th. And Melissa is one of the hosts and she is an expert, a fitness expert. So I am happy to have you on because we haven't really covered the topic of exercise and fitness. And I love your philosophy around it. So welcome.
Thank you. So excited to talk about this.
I know you're just as passionate about perimenopause and menopause as I am. And so let's just get into it. Let's talk about, your background and also why is it so important for women in perimenopause and menopause? And I'm going to quote you to lift heavy shit.
Thank you. Yes. If nobody remembers anything else, just remember that. So my background is always been in health and fitness. I played all the sports as a kid. I was a varsity athlete in gymnastics at university and taught at a gym, started my personal training certification while at university, graduated with a degree in kinesiology, and I've never stopped. I just continued to take courses and courses and courses to continue to learn more to help more women. So That's my background. It's always been this. It's never varied. And then
Mm.
specifically with midlife women is when I hit that stage and I thought
Mm.
everything was fine. And it was, until it wasn't. And I
Mm.
remember all of a sudden one day went down to my desk and I'm like, what is this? And then my arms in a photo someone had of me doing this. I thought, what are those? It's literally, I felt like everything was fine one night. I went to bed and somebody had attached my head to somebody else's body.
I know.
And I thought, okay, maybe I need to work out more. And I haven't been doing this, and all those sort of things went through my mind. And then chatting with another friend of mine, she was going through the same things. And then I started to hear literally the same words from other women. I thought, okay, I think this is more than just not working out the same. And this is a menopause, midlife thing that's going on. And I just said, nope, it's not ending like this. This is not how my chapter ends. And I'm going to figure this out. So
I like that.
I went back to school again and took more courses and tried different programs and supplements and hired coaches. And before long, I started seeing changes and I guess figured out what works for midlife women. And we have to do things differently than we are doing prior to that. I don't know if you remember, maybe you never needed to worry about it, but you're in your 20s and you're going to be going out next week. I'm like, okay, I'm going to skip a couple meals so that I lose a couple pounds and fit into whatever outfit. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work anymore. We have to do things very differently in midlife. So,
Oh yeah, what worked for us before does not work for us anymore. I mean, that's kind of like my mantra. I mean, whether it's food, whether it's exercise, whatever it is. And I remember myself too. I think it was probably around 2016 where, and this was before I started Morphus, and I remember asking around. I'm like, okay, so are you gaining and losing weight? So for me, weight fluctuations was huge and for years. And I didn't know that that was a symptom of perimenopause and menopause. Now we know there's 103 according to our research, but I didn't know much back then. And I remember I would like gain 8 pounds and literally it seemed like what was overnight. And then like a couple weeks or a couple days later, or a week later, I'd lose it all. And then I would gain 10 pounds and then I would lose it all. And this went on for months. And I would just be like, what is happening? I didn't change anything. I didn't change the way I was exercising. I didn't change what I was eating, but yet my body was changing and going through all of these, well, now we know the transition. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And it's something that's very important for us to understand that what worked for us before most probably won't work for you now as your body is changing.
yeah.
So, Melissa, we know, we're Gen Xers. Can I ask you your age? Are you open
Yeah.
about sharing your
Yeah.
age?
Just turned 57.
57. Okay. So I'm 54 and we grew up in a generation where we were very much about diet culture and we were very much about, going and hitting it, that cardio and the more cardio, the better the cardio. And I remember I was so afraid to lift weights. It's funny because this is probably one of the biggest myths that I want to dispel for us ladies in perimenopause and menopause is that, I remember I would be afraid to lift a weight because, ooh, I might become the Hulk by lifting a weight. Like I had
Right.
this fear. And now
Right.
I look back and I'm like, I really wish I would have like focused much more on weight training than I did on all those years of cardio, because
Right.
what we need now is more of that. So let's talk a little bit about what is happening to our body and why lifting weights is so important now.
Yeah. It's so important because strength training, the amount of muscle you have, is going to determine the quality of your life long term. It's about keeping you out of the hospital and the nursing homes and being able to live independently. That's how important it is.
Mm.
Because at the really old age of 30, women start to lose both muscle mass and bone mass to
Mm.
the tune of 3 to 5% per decade. So by the age of 80, if you're not doing anything about this, you could have lost 30% of your muscle mass.
It's
And if you're not
crazy.
doing anything about that, like strength training, you're not applying any force on your muscles, which when you apply force, that's what keeps them strong. So when you're not doing that, they're becoming more weak, like osteopenia and then osteoporosis. And it can get to the point where a woman can suffer a fall and breaks a bone, and they don't know, was it the fall that caused the break, or did the bone break and then it caused the fall? And it's silent. You don't feel yourself losing muscle. You don't feel your bones getting brittle until it happens. So that's why it is so important to do the strength training to build muscle mass. And like you said, we're not talking about becoming the Hulk, girls. You know, it is a beyond a full-time job in order to get, let's say, bulky, if you will. And that's not what I talk about. That's not what I teach. That's not how I train to get bulky. Um, Let me rephrase that. I train to get bulky, but that doesn't happen because I'm not training full time like that. So it literally is going to determine the quality of your life long term.
And how
That's
long we live. There's so much research now showing that muscles are how much muscle you have to longevity. Like there was
yeah.
a study that I was looking at that looks at your quad muscle and it's linked to memory loss and Alzheimer's. And you're just to your point about the fall, and you would probably, I mean, you would know much more than I do about this, but you hear often that people will fall and then shortly after they'll pass away. And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's one stat. I'm sure there's many, but over the age of 70, of those that fall and fracture their pelvis, 50% will not survive it. Isn't
Wow.
that scary? It just gives me
Very,
chills when I say that
very
because
scary.
you fracture something that requires a visit to the hospital. Sometimes, and too often, it requires surgery. And then there's complications from surgery. And then there's extended stays in the hospital. And then there's loss of independence because now you need somebody to care for you. And I can share my own family's experience with that. And then sometimes they don't ever recover completely from that. They pass away. So it's like, this is dire for women
Mhm.
to lift weights. It's not oh, would be nice. Oh, should have. How we look in a bikini. It is about quality of life long term. Like, who wants to live to the ripe old age of 90 if you don't have your independence? Like, it's
Yeah.
terrible.
It's not even a question of when, it's a question of now we need to be doing this. Okay. So let's go back for a second. I want to understand, and I want the ladies who are listening to our podcast to understand what is the connection between building muscle and bone health.
So when you literally lift muscle, so the muscle's contracting and it's pulling on the bones, and that actually impacts bone health. And that force applied to the bone makes it strong. Like, weight bearing exercises make your bones stronger because there's force being applied to that. So it's so important that we have to. So if you're not doing strength training, you're not really using your muscles. Like, walking is wonderful and it's a necessary thing that we need to do every single day, but our bodies are used to it. So therefore it's not doing enough. It's doing some, but it's not enough. Think of that more for just little bit of heart health, especially if you can get your heart rate elevated, and your mental health being outside, and general movement, because, sitting is the new smoking now, but it's not enough to build muscle. I mean, if it was, everybody would look like the Hulk because so many women do walk, but it's not enough. We need to lift heavy shit to
Okay.
challenge the muscles to put the force on the bones.
So talk a little bit about what we should be doing. Like I know some of the questions I have is, okay, so how much, how many times a week, how are we supposed to be doing it? Is it 2 hours at a time? Is it enough if we do 20 minutes? What is the best type? Should, like, so all of those questions I would love to cover today in the podcast because I know these are questions that our audience is going to be asking and thinking about. One of the things before you do, I know for me when I started, so I've been weight training now. I started really doing it and committing to it it was last August, so a year and a bit.
Good.
And I tried my hardest to go at least 3 times a week. I know I probably should be doing more than that, but I try my hardest. And I have to say, I quite love it. And I'm very proud. Like, I was at my sister's on Friday night and I was telling her because she was saying, "Oh, I know I should start working out." And she's 8 years younger than me. And I'm like, "You absolutely should be, should be working out and doing strength training." And I was like, kind of like joking around and showing her my muscles. And she like takes her hand and like she like squeezes it down to like nothing, right? I'm like, "But no, 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 there's really muscle there." I'm like so proud of my muscle. And I'm like, maybe you just can't see it, but it's there. But I'm really trying. And I'm like, okay, well, I know that our muscle breaks down way quicker than we're building it up.
Yeah.
But like, I just want to understand exactly like, what is it like? How much? How often? What should it be? Is it, the fact that it is there, but I'm kind of like, I want to know the details.
Yeah, and I mean, it is there. It is there because you are lifting. And to your point of, look at you, you've been doing this regularly, consistently since last August, and you do not look anywhere near like the Hulk,
No,
right?
I actually wish I had more of like my muscles showing. Believe me, I love it.
Right.
I actually think it's beautiful. Like I love when
Mhm.
women, you look at their arms and they're like muscular. I think it's
Mhm.
such a sign of strength, in my opinion. But
Me too. Love it. So how much and all that stuff, there is a range because you've got to start where you're at. So for women that have never exercised, like strength trained before or haven't in a very, very long time, that's very different than what I would recommend to you. Somebody that's been doing it consistently and now you just want to up your game a little bit, right?
mhm.
So you've always got to start where you're at because, and I have been accused of, oh, Melissa, you move so slow with your clients. I'm like, yeah, but nobody gets injured and we move forward constantly. Like there's no race, right? So I want you to get stronger and feel good without any injuries. Otherwise, we go backwards. So like sort of a general rule of thumb is between 2 to 4 times per week of strength training, and that's it.
Mm.
Because because of our hormone changes and so on, we literally don't have the energy to be pushing ourselves that hard anymore. And again, I'm not speaking to those that are still Olympic athletes and they're in midlife or menopause or the endurance athletes. That's a whole different category. We're just saying for the average person, right? So 2 to 4 times per week. And what it it depends what you're comfortable with. Do you have a trainer to work with who can help you with the right form? Right now, I'm running an online, it's called Fall Strong, and it's at home workout with bands. So
Mm.
those are safer than weights because they don't weigh anything, right? You're using them, but you don't have to worry about lifting them the right way and so on, like that, less chance of hurting yourself, right? And it's start with literally, you could start once a week and then you could start twice a week. And how long? It depends how often you're working out, right? Like, and by no means does it need to be 2 hours. Oh my gosh, not at all. We don't actually have the energy stores to be working out for 2 hours at a time. So you could, when people are stuck like that, I tell them pick two of the exercises that I've given and alternate back and forth, back and forth. And that's great. So maybe that takes you 5 to 7 minutes. If you've done that multiple times per week and then multiple times throughout the month, you're looking at you've done some hours of working out.
Mm.
And I know once they're dressed and they go downstairs and they do two, they'll probably do two more and maybe even two more.
Because you
So,
start feeling good, right? Like you're feeling good about yourself and you're like, oh, I'm liking this, so you want to do more. You want to feel good.
right. And you just have to get them started. That's the hardest part. And then once they do that, and if you do it appropriately, where they're not so sore the next day and they can hardly move, which is the no pain, no gain is not good. You've done extra damage to your muscles, and we don't want that. You can be aware, okay, yeah, I feel something, I did something, that's okay. Then they're likely to do it again. And then they start to feel better in their clothes. Their clothes fit better. They start to be able to grab things overhead and can balance it and bring it down. Their balance improves. They can get up from a chair without heave ho. So, yeah, progress, just constantly making progress.
Yeah, you bring up a couple of good points. So number one, I remember when I first started in last August, I would literally injure myself all the time because it was more of a class and it wasn't one-on-one.
Mhm.
And the teacher's busy with a lot of different people. And also, I'm going to say, being one of the older ones in the class, most of these classes I find are really geared towards younger people. So like the jumping and like everything, the exercises that they're doing. Now, I don't do it. I do low impact everything. Always have. It's just been like I just don't like it. And now with like the pelvic floor, I am not jumping up and down. I'm like, first of all, I'll pee my pants, but also I just know it's not good for us in this phase of life. And it's interesting because I would come home and I would hurt myself where I was more injured than I was working out in the beginning. My back, I would turn my neck the wrong way. I did this the wrong way. Like it was so frustrating. And so I like that you're saying, be careful and you go slow with your clients because you don't want them to get injured because it is not fun that
Oh,
you cannot get out of bed the next day when you're hurting your back. So I like that you said that. And I think it's important that when you are starting up and doing it, that you work with somebody like Melissa or somebody that really knows what they're doing so that you prevent that injury, because that's key. And the other thing too is that the pain. So I still do, like when I'm working out, and especially when you start and stop. So when I'm working out on a regular basis and I don't have travel in between, like recently I didn't work out. I haven't worked out for 2 weeks because I was traveling for a week and then I got sick and I couldn't work out for a week. So, and then now I know I'm going to go back tomorrow and I know I'm going to be in pain. So talk a little bit more about the pain, because I find that a lot of us have more pain in our bodies now, but also you're saying, you should feel a little bit like here and there, but like, how do we prevent that when we're trying to build muscle, but yet we don't want to cause ourselves too much pain? I'd love you to kind of go into that.
Yeah, there's a couple different kinds of pain that we're talking about. So the pain that comes with aging that we hear about. So that can be many different things. And exercise can actually help reduce pain, believe it or not. So you feel like you've got achy joints and things like that. Exercise can actually help that. And then there's the pain from working out too hard. You overdid it. So when we lift weights, we put micro tears in our muscle. And then, assuming we're healthy and we have the right nutrition, the body repairs itself and it comes back stronger. So you can get up the next day or 2 days later and do it all again. The intense pain, which is called DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, if you've squatted too heavy and then you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even sit down on the toilet, that kind of pain, you've literally made bigger tears. So we don't want that. And that's why I do not believe in no pain, no gain. Awareness is just like you feel, okay, yeah, I can just feel it a little, like a speck of DOMS, that I'm aware that I did something. That's okay. And that's the maximum I would ever want. And that's speaking from experience. Don't ever work out with your sales manager who's a bodybuilder and you do squats together as a sales meeting. I couldn't walk up the stairs the next day. Not good. And it's not healthy because you can really injure yourself. So there's those two things. So exercise can actually help reduce that pain that comes with aging. And that's often lack of movement, because think of your joints and there's sponges in there. So when you compress them and then release it when you're exercising, it's like a sponge. So you squeeze it out and then it sucks in nutrition, if you will, and hydration. So it can actually reduce the pain. And then as you get stronger, your body moves better if you're doing it right. So then there's less compensation in other areas of your body. So yes, and especially some women just say, it's what's it called? I forget the term. Arthralgia, when your whole body aches and they feel like it's arthritis throughout your whole body. And that is one of the symptoms of menopause, which you would know. And exercise can actually help that, which is counterintuitive because we think my whole body hurts. I don't want to move. It's going to hurt more. It's actually going to help you in addition to the right nutrition and on and all those things. So, yeah.
And there are different body parts that we want to be working out. So what is what is the right way to do it? So I know that on certain days when I go to the gym, it's, chest, and then there's the biceps, the triceps, and the shoulders. And I know they have all the body parts that work together. And then you have leg day, and then you have full body day. Like, what do you recommend is a good, I guess, way to look at it when you're working out? Should we be rotating? Should we be doing everything on the same day? What's that? What do you recommend to women?
Again, it depends where the person's at and how much time they have and how often they can work out. So if they're new and they don't have a lot of time, we're just going to do these muscles this day and then we'll switch to something else and we'll just make sure that we're hitting everything throughout
rotating
the week. Yeah, because
okay, that's my question.
I mean, do you want to be able to reach overhead or you just want to be able to walk? We want to do everything, right? So we need to strengthen our whole body so that we have better quality of life. Because if one area is weaker, then the body's going to be compensating, or you can get hurt. Like if your body's, let's say you've never done upper body, you've just focused on legs the whole time. Well, what if you slip and fall? What's going to happen to those arms or your shoulder, your collarbone, stuff like that when you fall? So you need to do the whole body, but depending on the time, then we do different programs, and then our bodies are smart. They get used to things. So then we got to mix it up and challenge as well as you go through.
So what you're saying is we should rotate through the different body parts so that you're not just doing one part in particular.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I
Plus
hear all the time.
break.
I hear women are like, "Oh, I'm not coming today. I hate leg day," or "I'm not coming today because I hate arms." And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "You should be working out all your body parts." Like, so exactly. So it's interesting to hear. I guess a lot of us have preconceived notions too from when we
Yes.
were younger, right? Like being Gen Xers, I feel like there's a lot of PTSD for a lot of us when it
Mm.
comes, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. They've shown studies by the age of 11, I think it's 70% of us have had a negative experience with physical activity. So, oh, you didn't get picked for that team at school. You were the last one chosen for that over there. Or you're really good at volleyball, Andrea, but you're not a great runner. And you've got to do the cross country at school and you come in last. That has a negative emotional impact that lasts with us. So then we're led to believe, oh, I'm not good at sports, or I don't want to get embarrassed again. And as a result, we don't work out, or believing you're going to turn into the Hulk, or you go into the gym and you do have guys that look like the Hulk and they're throwing their weights around. Like that's not a fun place to be. So
Yeah.
yeah, lots of emotional unpackaging required.
So when you work with women, you work with them, they're in the comfort of their own home. So they don't have to go to a gym or go somewhere to actually lift the weights, right?
Yeah, I do both.
Okay.
So I can give them, like, I can work with them like this on Zoom and teach them what it is, the workout that they're doing. And then they can take me on their phone to their gym and I can watch them, or they can video themselves and then send me a video and I can give them some tips on that as well. Or as I said, right now, the most popular thing I'm doing, because it's in a group, which is nice because you've got some community and accountability, is the bands workout. So I just post that 3 times a week for them the night before, and then they do it that day or maybe the day after, and it's all recorded so they can do it at their own pace. And the thing with bands, what I love is they can take them with them. So traveling,
Mhm.
they can throw a
Yeah.
band in their suitcase. Like Nicole, friend of mine, we were traveling to Arizona a couple weeks ago and she threw the bands in her suitcase and we were doing band workout in the airport. It's like, get it
That's
done.
awesome.
Yeah.
Nicole's our other partner in our the Power Menopause
Yeah.
conference. She's awesome. So, first of all, I like that because convenience is really important, right? Because we want to
Yeah.
be able to work out wherever we are or do
Right.
whatever we can. So
Mhm.
that's important. How true is it that when we're doing strength training that we need to be sweating in order to know that it's working?
No, no. And some people simply sweat more than others. So you'll know if it's working if you start to see and feel results, right? That's the best things. How do you feel? And I do a lot of that because we're so busy and we just do stuff without actually thinking. A lot of times, just go through the motions quick. Oh, this is the workout, this is it. And especially if somebody's new, they're trying to figure out the exercise and try to remember and all that. It's a lot, right? It's a lot to take on. So it's having them do measurements every 4 weeks to see progress, to see that the strength is going up. How is it impacting your quality of life? Oh, you can actually sit down without it hurting. You can go upstairs now. You have more range of motion in your knees. It's all those things, which is why we're actually doing these exercises in the first place. Like does it matter if you can lift 30-pound dumbbells or 20? No, it's can I run upstairs without getting out of breath? Can I get down on the floor with my kids or grandkids and get up again? That's why we do all these things. So,
I saw on social media, and is there any validity to it where they say test, your strength and you stand, with your hands out and you sit down without using your hands and get back up. Is that true? And that is an indication
yeah,
of how strong you are?
yeah, because it's quality of life. It's being able to move. Just think of going forward in 30 some years. Do you want to be able to get up off the toilet unassisted? Or nobody does. That's what I always tell people. Not on my watch, and none of my clients will ever need help getting off the toilet. Nope.
I like that. My
Hmm.
father-in-law is a perfect example, and my husband and I look to him, and he was really one of my inspiration of how I don't want to age because he's in his late 80s and he has no muscle to the point where his muscle completely atrophied. He lived alone and he's now in assisted living, but he lived alone, and even to the point where he hardly spoke, his vocal cords
Oh,
sounded like he had no muscle. And my husband and I were like, yeah, no, that we just saw firsthand how atrophy, what it can actually do to somebody's quality of life and how it just goes from, and he was, fine before the lockdown and he was walking and he was doing things. And then he did nothing. And oh my gosh, what a difference.
Yep, that's what I'm talking about, quality of life. And we don't think about it because we're healthy right now. We feel fine right now. But we need to think about it because stuff is happening that we can't feel. So you
Yes.
feel fine, but your muscle is wasting away if you are not lifting weights. Your bones are getting more brittle if you're not doing anything about it. You can't feel it until something happens.
And we're more prone to bone issues, right? Osteoporosis and
Yeah.
osteopenia as we go into this phase of life. So that's so important. On top, and I like that. So I'm going to share one story, and then I want to talk about food and supplements. I want to go into that. So one of the ways that I was measuring that I have measured how I feel is before I started working out, I just never had a lot of upper body strength. My legs were always super strong. My calves super strong. I played sports. I was like super, very strong, but my upper body was not. So now when I work out, I love doing arms. Like it is my favorite thing
Good.
because I love to feel the strength. So I travel quite a bit for work, and I travel with my carry-on suitcase, which is very heavy because I don't like to check a bag. And the last few times that I traveled, I was on the airplane, and usually someone will say, "Oh, would you like me to help you put it up on the, above your seat?" And the last few times I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you." And I literally took it and put it right up. And I was like, "Yeah." It was like
Awesome.
such a good indication to me that I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm getting stronger, that I don't need the help, and that I'm not struggling to get it up. I actually could do it myself and pick it up over my head. So like when you were saying about being able to put your hands over your head, or even before I started working out, I would wash my hair, and I know a lot of it could be a thyroid issue too, which I do have, but even like washing my hair, my arms would get tired. So
Mhm.
now what a difference. Like honestly, ladies, I cannot recommend it enough. Please go lift heavy shit like Melissa says. Go exercise, work out with somebody that knows what they're talking about. Look into Melissa's courses and come to our summit. I know, Melissa, you're going to
Yes.
be talking about it at our summit as well.
Yep.
Sign up for it. It's free. It's an online summit. You get the recordings. You don't have to show up live if you don't want to. It is a live summit, but you can come afterwards. We'll have all the recordings. But I just feel like if you haven't started doing or lifting weights or doing strength training, please let this be your inspiration. There's a reason you're listening to our podcast. Let it be your inspiration to start today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about food and nutrition. How important is what we're eating and the supplements we're taking? How does it factor in to strength training?
Huge. You need to have the energy to do the workout. And then you need to eat in order to fuel your muscles for repair and recovery. And especially at our age, midlife, 40 and beyond, protein, protein, and more protein because it's the building block of muscles. So you need it. And I am so aware of when I go to the gym and if I haven't eaten enough the day before, be it protein or overall, just some days, I get busy and I just don't eat enough. I can totally feel it in my energy levels. So
Interesting.
we absolutely need the protein. We need to eat our weight in fruits and veggies because of the antioxidants they offer, which slows down the aging process. When we're working out, it's actually creating oxidation. So if we're eating a crappy diet and we're exercising, we're doing more harm than good. To quote a mentor of mine, she said, "You have no business exercising if you are not eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables because they slow down that aging process. They reduce the oxidative stress. So you need it for all the other things too, brain function and healthy heart and every
Fiber.
reducing, yeah, that and reducing inflammation in your body. Help reduce the pain. It's so important. And then again, like I said, I can't emphasize enough adequate protein to help build muscles because it becomes a vicious cycle. We'll just say women start to slow down. They start doing less. So then they're eating less and then they have less energy. So they're doing less. And it's this downward spiral that happens. And when I first tell them, you need to, I'll start with 50 grams of protein because some women aren't barely eating that. I'll start with that. And then we got to get you up to 75 and
You're
even
talking you're
those
talking per day. Okay. I was going to
protein.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Melissa, now I know that you and Nicole, you are now certified in fasting like a girl, like intermittent
Yeah.
fasting. So, I want to understand, like you're talking about, because there's a lot of information out there about women in perimenopause and menopause that they shouldn't fast, that they should fast, and don't fast before you work out, fast before you work out. Can you just talk a little bit about what you have learned in becoming a certified fasting like a girl coach?
One size does not fit all. That's what I've learned for everything,
Yes.
right? For a lot of women, fasting is that missing ingredient that helps them lose that weight that the scale's been stuck forever. It, but you have to fast like a girl. That's what's specific. We're on like a 28-day cycle, whereas men are on a 24-hour cycle. So we're not little men. We can't fast like them. We have something called hormones that are changing throughout the month, whether you have your cycle or you don't. And we need to be very mindful of that. And when we're focusing on progesterone does not like fasting. So we got to be feeding our progesterone, whereas estrogen loves to fast. So that's a good time to be fasting. And then there's different lengths of time to fast. And then what's going on in your life. Somebody with, let's say, adrenal fatigue right now, so they have so much stress in their life, fasting is not their friend. It's too much stress for their body. So there's so many variables that go into that. And we teach all of that so that woman can make an educated decision like, oh, okay, it's not a good time for me to fast right now. But with fasting, and it's not about reducing calories. I just want to say that out there. Usually for most people, maybe sometimes some people are eating way too much. For the most part, they're not eating enough and they're not eating enough good quality and they're not focusing on their macros to make sure protein and healthy fats. So with the fasting that we teach, it's just eating the right amount of all of those things within a certain period of time. So it's not about not eating for long, long periods of time. People think, oh, it's reducing calories, it's not eating all this. Like, no, that's not what we're teaching. There are longer fasts, of course, but it's about eating within a certain period of time so that your body gets a chance to do other things. And that's when the magic can happen with losing weight, with improving your immune health, your insulin sensitivity, so many things like that. Reducing inflammation, reducing bone or joint pain. Magic happens with this. So
Hmm.
powerful.
And when you're talking about progesterone, estrogen, you're talking women who are in perimenopause because are you talking about the differences just because estrogen levels are fluctuating? They're obviously, their hormones are a little bit higher, or you're referring also to menopause when our hormones are in the menopausal ranges?
Both, because if you don't have your period, you can follow the moon cycle. And
Hmm.
if you do have your period, then you would obviously follow that. And at different times in this 28 days, our body is focusing on producing more progesterone. Other times, estrogen is the key player. So knowing that is knowing when's a good time to fast and when isn't. We got to up our carbs more. Progesterone loves carbs. So we got to get more carbs, healthy carbs, of course. I'm not talking about the bagels and all that stuff. But it's important. And when we really start paying attention to our bodies, again, magic happens and we feel better. We also stop beating ourselves up like, oh, I don't have any energy to go to the gym. What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. This is a phase where you should be quieter and not going for a personal best in the gym. Just walk, be active, do yoga, things like that. And then maybe the next week is when the energy starts building up again. Okay, now you can go harder, try to get lifting a little bit heavier weights. And you said it right at the beginning when we started talking. Women have been taught how to diet. We have not been taught how to eat based on our bodies, our incredible bodies, and the different phases that we go through. And so as a result, we've been just always worried about that number on the scale and cutting out calories as opposed to the good calories and when to push hard at the gym and when to ease up and why we're more social at different times of the month and then other times we're not, and how to feed our hormones. Oh man, it would be such a different world if we did that, but we fit into a men's world for the most part a lot of times, unfortunately.
And if we
So
actually learned that in school and we learned, I mean, one of the things, and I always say nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, research, that's my lane. Hormones is out of my lane. And that's because I really never learned hormones. I never went to school and learned hormones. I never read books on hormones. It was one of those things. Now, I've learned a lot since, but I still stay in my lane. I
right.
always say I leave hormones to the experts that's who they specialize in. But it really would, we have all been, it's such a disservice that we did not really learn and understand hormones the way we really should have.
Right. Yeah, it should be a conversation in school in grade, I don't know, 6, 7, as girls are starting to enter and
Yeah,
get
we
their
should be
cycle.
taught it. It's part of the curriculum. It should be taught every
Yeah,
all along. Yeah.
yeah,
Same way
and
we should be talking
say
about menopause.
exactly, because there's so many women are having so much trouble in the workplace. They're
Oh,
they have no idea what's going on and on and on. And then there's been an article I read recently that employers are refusing to hire women between the ages of 40 and 60 because they're not sure what they're going to get, which I
wow.
understand, but that can impact your job. But if women knew how to take care of themselves, they would be having a better time in the workplace. So
We have a whole survey of women in the workplace. And so yeah, the stats are just they're staggering, and women who have left because of it. And also what's interesting is we did with our if those of you who have not filled out our survey, I'm going to put a link below. Please fill out our surveys. But our women in the workplace survey is so interesting because when we looked at the top 10 most common symptoms in general for the 5,000 women who have filled out our signs and symptoms survey versus, and I talked about this last year at our live conference, versus the women in the workplace, what they're complaining about it. Some of them overlap, but some of it doesn't. Like it's very unique, like within that top 10 category. And one of the main things that of the symptoms that women are saying, or it's not so much a symptom, it's a reality, is they have no more tolerance for bullshit. Like they are done, right? Or like our patients are done. We just don't. And I could so relate,
I
you know?
love it. Yeah.
It's like we have no, like, we just can't do it. So, like, it's great. So, okay. So, and just for clarity, just so I want to make sure everyone understands that when we're talking about fasting, is there a difference on women and how, if fasting works for them? Because I
Mhm.
agree. That's my philosophy. We're all different, and everybody, what works for me doesn't work for you. What works for you may not work for me,
Right.
vice versa. It's just, we're all different genetically, the way we, our changes, all of that. So I always say there is no one size fits all nutrition plan for everybody. There's general things that we want to look at, like you're talking about. We want protein, we want lots of vegetables, we want that low glycemic fruits, and for some, and good quality fats. And for some people, complex carbohydrates, legumes in moderation. Other people can have more of it. Some people can have less of it. Depending on your particular makeup and your body, and then nuts and seeds, of course. So, should we be looking at intermittent fasting differently when we're in perimenopause than when we're in menopause?
Y- Yes, because you don't have a cycle. So that's when you'd switch over to the moon cycle. But then it's essentially the same. So if you're using the new moon is when your period is starting, then it is relatively the same. Yeah. So you just use that calendar instead of your own body's calendar.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's all about what we teach is tuning into your body and how you feel, because you may think, okay, I'm going to try to fast a little longer, but then something in your world happens and it's more stressful and you don't feel like it anymore or whatever. It's great. Then don't worry about it. Just teaching so much self-love and compassion, because women have not been taught that, right? It's just diet. You need to weigh this much. In China, I believe, if oh, and a friend of mine, Nicole, just shared this with me. If a woman gains like 2 or 3 pounds, the men automatically start looking for other partners. I'm like, what?
What?
Right.
Oh my
Crazy.
gosh.
So
Yeah.
teaching, it's really about self-love and tuning into how does your body feel? Are you ready to fast? Are you not? Do you feel good when you eat this or not? Do you need more of this or not? And it's literally life-changing for women because they get their mojo back, their energy back, their mood is better. It literally changes their life and everyone else around them in their world.
You mentioned earlier that when you don't eat enough the day before you work out, you feel it. Do you
Mhm.
recommend, and again, I would think this is a personal choice, but do you recommend women eat something before they go and lift weights or eat something right after? Like, what's the protocol, or is there a protocol that can
Mhm.
help with building those muscles?
Depends. It depends on how people feel. So when you work out in a fasted state, I kind of relate it to the chipmunk stored nuts in the winter and then he's got to go find those nuts. It's kind of what your body does. You're in a fasted state, so it doesn't have any nuts readily available, so it's got to go searching, and it will go search for those glycogen stores. And where does your body store it? In your muscles. And then once that's depleted, then guess where? Your body fat or our brain, because our brain is majority fat, right? And when that's one place where the body will store excess glycogen. So that's great to get sugar stores out of your brain because that's what can lead to type 3 diabetes, right? Alzheimer's and so on.
Memory
So
loss. Yeah.
being in a fasted state, your body will start to pull energy stores out of those places, or sorry, glycogen out of those places. So it's really beneficial for you. Whereas when you eat and then you go work out, your body's just using those stores right away, that immediate, those nuts right away that you just had, it uses those. But some people don't feel good.
Oh, they'll
And
get dizzy. I know a lot of women might get dizzy.
right. But that could be something else. They could be low B vitamins. And that was my experience. I would bend over at the gym and pick something up and I think, whoa, okay, I should have eaten. No, I actually had low B vitamins. And then I added those to my diet. And guess what? I'm not dizzy anymore when I bend over and pick up weights. So there's so many factors involved. It's not just a eat before or don't eat before. It depends on the person. And if you've never fasted before, if you're one of those people that wakes up and you're eating within 30 minutes, it's going to take you some time to push out that meal a little bit. Never mind all of a sudden try to go work out and not having eaten. So it's not a quick fix and it's definitely not a one size fits all. And there can be other factors too, right? So
I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting. I've been doing it for many years. I love it. I just I don't find it now. I've been doing it for so long that I don't find it difficult anymore. But some days I'm like hungry, so I eat. I kind of
perfect.
I listen to my body. If I'm going and I'm busy and I don't, forget to eat sometimes, and sometimes I can go longer, sometimes I can go shorter. But I know that, and again, when I'm talking about intermittent fasting, I'm talking about that, the 14 to 16 hours.
Yeah.
But and I know there's, fasting that you want to go 24 hours and, all those other things, which I, haven't really gotten into. And I know that would be a conversation for another day. But what we're referring to here is more that 12 hours to 16-hour fast. So just for clarity for everybody, I just want you to know that's the one I'm referring to.
Yeah. 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 There's all different times and there's all kinds of benefits of
Mm.
doing that. Like for cancer patients, they will have them do a 3-day fast because the body's not busy with digesting anymore. It can go into healing or what's called autophagy, where it's going through the body and finding all the cells that aren't functioning properly or that are dead and just literally getting rid of that, like cleaning house so that your body can function optimally. And that begins even just at 17 hours.
It's amazing.
So, but again,
And
we
I want,
can't do it all the
sorry, go
time.
ahead.
I was just saying we can't do that all the time. We got to vary the lengths of fast because of us women and our hormone cycles.
And I want you all to be clear when you hear things on social media or you hear people speaking and they're like, "Oh, you should never do
Mm.
this. Never intermittent fast. You should always wake up and do this, or you should only do that." Ladies, be mindful of who you're getting your information from because there's a lot of information out there and a lot of people with a lot of different opinions. But Melissa, you're very much in simpatico with me and my thinking. And for those who've been listening to my podcast for a while, know that I have a very balanced approach. It's listen to your body, do what works for you. And
Yep.
if somebody tells you something that doesn't feel right for you, don't do it. And be mindful. To me, you'll see all the time, you'll be like, "Oh, if you see this, red flag. If you see this, red flag." The only red flag, in my opinion, is anyone telling you you have to do something a certain way. Now, there's guidelines, like I said. Listen to your body. You are the captain of your own ship. You make the decisions. Yes, we can try things and listen to different people. Just make sure that the people that you're listening to resonates with you and how you feel. And that to me is extremely important. So I just want to I want to make sure I say that because I want you to feel the best you can feel based on your makeup and who you are and how you feel. And I love that you said that, Melissa, that it depends. It depends on a lot of different factors, right?
Yeah.
Intermittent fasting might work for me, it might not work for you, like etc. So always listen to your body.
Yep.
Let's move into supplements before we end the interview. One question I had, and because I'm writing my book now, it comes out in 2026 and it's on menopause and perimenopause. I'm writing the chapter on supplements. Big fan of magnesium. I'm a
Yes.
big fan. Yes. Okay. So how does magnesium we know magnesium are very important for muscles and bones. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on taking magnesium?
Exactly that. Very good for muscles and bones. Yeah, and muscle cramps. A lot of people suffer from muscle cramps as well, which is can also be dehydration, but you also need magnesium. So you can be fully hydrated, but you need the magnesium as well. So yeah, that's a standard.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the power of menopause.
Oh, so exciting. It's one of the best events of the year, honestly. And I'm like happy, sad. I'm so happy that it's online because so many more people can tune in this year. That was our biggest request, I guess, after we did this last year in person is, oh, I wish you'd done this online. I live in the other side of Canada. I live in the States. I live in Australia, and I can't possibly
Yeah.
get there. So I love that it's online so that the whole world can tune in. But I'm sad because it was such a magical experience as being in person. Um, we are going to have so many fabulous experts speaking, just an absolute wealth of knowledge. So make sure you got a pad of paper and you can take lots of notes that you can go back and revisit because it's going to be like drinking out of a fire hose. There's so much information coming at you, and that's okay. You don't have to implement everything you hear, just one thing at a time. It's October 25th. It's a Friday. It runs from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you work, take the day off. You'll be so glad you did. If you can't, you can also buy the recording and you'll have access to this so you can go back, which I always do that because there's so much information. Like, what
Yeah.
I gotta hear her again. What did she say? Or as my life changes, all of a sudden I need to hear about this topic and I want to go back and hear what they had to say. And because when it's affecting me, that is way more meaningful, right? So
Yeah.
it's really good to hear that. So we have so many great speakers lined up for you guys to tune in. Andrea, of course, is one, and myself. And then we keep mentioning Nicole. We've got Julie Daniluk, a nutritionist specializing in inflammation. Um,
Sean Nisbet is talking heart health. We have a lot of people.
e-
Bryce Wild.
every topic.
Yeah, we have like amazing, even vaginal health. Like we have an amazing lineup of speakers. So we're very excited about it. October 25th, write it down in your calendars and we'll put a link below that you can sign up. Again, it's free. And the four of us, the four partners who are putting it on, we're like so excited because we've done this before. It's our second year doing it and we're just going online. So for those of you who don't live in Toronto. So it's we really opened it up to everybody else. So we're excited about it. So Melissa, thank you for doing this. Thanks for telling us about the importance of weight training. I could not agree more, and I'm happy that we talked about this today.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for helping getting this message out. So now everyone go lift heavy shit.
Go, let's have you shit. And then just quickly, how can people get in touch with you? I will put the information below as well.
Yeah, probably easiest is just email or social media. And you can put that link down there below. Be easy.
And what's your email?
Melissa, Ann, no E, Hyde, HYDE at gmail.com. So yeah, write it out so they spell it right. Or social
Perfect.
media, Melissa Ann Hyde on Insta. You can follow me there for lots of inspo and strength training. Lots of fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks again.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview and it inspired you to go and lift heavy shit because it is no joke, ladies. We need to be lifting weights. We need to be weight training and we need to be strengthening our muscles. If you did enjoy it, please review and rate our podcast because it helps to get our information out to more people. And then please share it because the more you share shows you care. As always, I appreciate you spending the last little bit with me. I know there's a lot you can be doing, but instead you chose to spend it with me. And for that, I am grateful. See you at the next interview.